Good morning from New Zealand, good afternoon, New York. I hope you've been enjoying the festival thus far. I hope you are safe and well at this time. I'm really excited to be here to share with you some hopefully inspiring stories that have arisen from this pandemic mess that we find ourselves in. My talk today will deviate from my usual format, which tends to focus on customer experience and innovation trends, best practice, and thought leadership in CX. I felt it was more appropriate that this talk would focus on retail stories of social good, of resilience and change that have used design thinking for innovation. To kick into this, I wanted to share with you a very corny question posed to me the other day by one of my colleagues, but I'll share it nonetheless. He said to me, "How are diamonds formed, Russ?" And of course, the answer is under immense pressure. Insert eye roll here. But it is a truism. Meaningful outcomes aren't easy. This shit show that we find ourselves in, it is far from easy. Staying positive, motivated, determined, purposeful, and supportive isn't easy. This is a time of extreme pressure, but we will prevail, and along the way, some diamonds will form. So I'm going to talk to you today about 4 key initiatives that have been born out of this COVID-19 mess that we find ourselves in. They may not be diamonds, but they are initiatives that demonstrate our collective resilience, inventiveness, and empathy for others in times of great adversity. So just by way of introduction, I am the founder and principal strategist at D&Co. We're a multidisciplinary brand, CX, and innovation consultancy based in Auckland, New Zealand, using a collective model borrowed from my friend Neil Robinson out of Chapter SF, who I met on multiple trips to Silicon Valley a number of years ago. We're IT specialists. We've been responsible for in-flight entertainment experiences, the likes of Air New Zealand, Cathay Pacific, and interestingly enough, the royal family of Qatar and others. I think we might be a little quiet on this front for a while. There we are. Investor in Snap Delivery, 10-week startup. More on this a little bit later on this morning. I'm also a keynote speaker, which kind of now takes the form of these virtual sort of formats and a whole lot less travel from the edge of the world, which is most certainly welcome. Outside of business, I'm addicted to kite surfing. If the wind is up and the tides are right, there tends to be fairly significant gaps in my communication with clients. So look, COVID-19 hit and New Zealand essentially shut down. Our Prime Minister ran hard and fast and put in place some tough measures early on. We appear to have weathered this pandemic well so far, and we're, to all intents and purposes, back in business. I had my first in-person meeting a few weeks ago after 6 weeks of lockdown, and it felt so good to be around others again. It turns out we actually really value that kind of human connection in business. However, like most countries around the world, we've seen tens of thousands of jobs, and many SMEs simply go under. I have a multitude of friends that are now struggling to get through this, which is pretty terrible to witness. There are around 500,000 SMEs in New Zealand, representing 97% of businesses in this country. Around a third of New Zealand businesses don't expect to survive the crisis, according to a recent survey. And our government, of course, has spent billions, and we face an uncertain future. However, I think this time of great sadness, adversity, loss, and displacement has brought out humankind's true colours. We're seeing incredible stories of social good, of compassion, support, and guidance like Monarchy that I'll talk about shortly. And we strongly believe that communities will be brought closer together. And let's not forget that 25% of those living with their partners had more sex during lockdown than pre-lockdown, according to a recent New Zealand survey. There was an upside. And of course, we all have a renewed respect for teachers, having realized we're not particularly good teachers ourselves. So at a macro level, government needs to support and lead, providing a financial lifeline and a strong advisory guidance required to ensure retailers can weather the immediate term, and then, of course, transform their businesses and shift their perspective and operating rhythm for a new world of retail. Ahead of our stories of give, of support, of adapt, and pivot, I want to share with you 4 key territories that we believe are important as we come out of lockdown. Support local, amplify contactless convenience, embrace the Nibble Effect, and humanise the efficiency paradigm. So let's start with support local. Goes without saying, it's not exactly a surprise, but supporting local business is of paramount importance at this time. We need to rally and do all we can to get small retailers back on their feet, and that starts with shopping locally. We're all supporting local businesses in our own right now, from local grocers to cafes and restaurants. It's really lovely to see this kind of local community village sort of support that we're seeing here, certainly where I live. A recent survey claims that 83% of New Zealanders are making more effort to buy local. And grocers, restaurants, and other retailers are amplifying their support for local producers in a far more overt way than we saw before the pandemic. And there are multiple campaigns running to provide small businesses with tools to support their business re-entry, like the Support Local movement, that is 3 toolkits with multiple marketing materials for free use by small retailers. We're also seeing a backlash against companies that aren't seen to be doing New Zealand or local communities any good. The community is essentially switching to homegrown services instead. You know, when we ran a customer service survey recently for the Snap delivery business that I'm an investor of, an overwhelming number of customers cited supporting local as their reason for choosing our business. Had we run that same survey 3 months ago, the data would be dramatically different. There has been a seismic shift, in our opinion. 77%, of Kantar study respondents indicated that they would like to see brands highlight how they are taking actions to be more helpful in this new version of normal. And I wouldn't be surprised if large format out-of-town hardware stores re-enter local towns with small format local pop-up experiences focused on local suppliers and click and collect style concepts at a kind of micro local level. For example, if we think about, again, where I kind of live, we're seeing multiple convenience-led grocery click and collect options pop up across ferry terminals, train stations, car parks. And research tells us that 70% of Kiwis have no idea what they're going to have for dinner at 4 p.m. in the afternoon. And I'd wager that is no different in the States. I also believe that we'll see an amplification of local experiential stores from big brand retailers. Thinking about sort of big box stores are going to be re-entering our local communities. If we think like Kia's planning studio in London and New York, these smaller format experimental, experiential kind of stores that are going to be coming to the fore. And if supporting local is the new normal, we're going to see a heightened connection between brands and their customers at a micro level. Nike by Melrose was way ahead of its time on this one. They designed their LA store with local Nike Plus customers. I think we're going to see much more of this behavior creeping in, that kind of hyper-local and design with your customers. I think there's a lot to be taken from designing with your customers, that design thinking movement to really help us to push through this. And we're also beginning to see a significant shifts in behavior. I think of over January to March 2020, daily Zoom users surged from 10 million to 200 million. And a lot of consumers, of course, won't be going back into their respective cities every day. A significant shift has taken place. And, we think many employees who didn't work from home before the pandemic have learned to do so, and some have seen productivity increase. I've got a number of clients who are pretty pessimistic about this kind of work from home kind of movement pre-COVID. And they've had a bit of an epiphany. They've had an appreciation for the benefits of working from home. The lifestyle benefits, the mental health benefits, and actually fundamentally the productivity benefits that have come from this. So look, I think we're going to find a significant portion of the workforce continue to partially work from home. I think about D&Co, for example, we'd save thousands of dollars for us and our clients if we moved to certain meetings being conducted virtually. And we're beginning to see that. Why drive into the city for an hour meeting where essentially you're adding an hour's worth of travel onto that as well? That doesn't make any sense. And I spotted this little social experiment the other week. It's actually a pretty decent sample size, around about 16,000. It asks, what would you choose? Work from home, go back to 100% office time, or both? And the results are really interesting, right? 39% saying that they prefer to continue to work from home, and only 8% saying that they want to go back to their office full time. What this means is that less folks are going to be in cities, and therefore there's going to be less footfall into retailers, which is the absolute challenge for us as we move forward. And we need to ideate our way through this particular challenge. Here's a supporting example, right? One of New Zealand's largest employees and one of my clients saw only 25% of their head office workforce return when Alert Level 2 came into effect. They were given the choice, right? It gave their employers choice to kind of continue to work from home or to return back to the office. And only 25% chose to do so, as I say. And of course, we've all heard that Facebook and Twitter and Spotify and others will be allowing many of their people to work from home permanently after the crisis passes. I think we really need to take this pretty seriously from a retail perspective and start to consider new ways upon which we actually turn up. So in short, how might we tell our unique local story to stand out? How do we turn up when business, isn't going back to a normal cadence? And how might we help or partner with other businesses that are hurting at this time and to do good for our communities and to do good for business and retailers up and down the country? So the second theme, amplifying contactless convenience. Of course, digital will accelerate the store of the future, both in store and online, and an amplification of contactless convenience. We're seeing, supercharged developments in contactless shopping. Even smaller businesses now are having to upgrade or run the risk of kind of losing customers. Cash is not king. Self-check-in, car rentals, airlines, hotels, etc. Self-checkout, retailers, click and collect, order at home, pick up in store, and of course an accelerated online store enhancement and a far, far better use of data in order to create a really lovely personalized or hyper-personalized experience wrapped around the consumer. The concept of a store, I think, will simply just become a place where you can buy anywhere, anytime. The goal to develop the ultimate omni-channel experience will accelerate at pace, thankfully. I've been bleating on about omni-channel for nearly a decade, and we're, woefully distant from that nirvana. But I don't actually think that's a uniquely New Zealand issue. I think that is most certainly experienced from customers around the world. Good example here, a New Zealand business that we've worked with, Imager, they look set to thrive as their contactless smart trolley takes off in Japan. Imager is the creator of the Smart Cart, an intelligent shopping trolley, and it harnesses computer vision, technology, and AI, and it's kind of essentially a unique queue-busting solution that automates checkouts and payments for a frictionless shopping experience. We'll also see creative businesses find differentiated ways to serve customers in this new normal. Take Harvey Nicks, Ask Harvey Nicks. It connects customers directly to staff in their local store who essentially go around and do a personalized shop with them, and then of course their goods are shipped off to them at home. Really unique and interesting ways on connecting that kind of the physical, the human, and the digital aspects of the customer experience. Really lovely experience here from my home country, Scotland. We're seeing brands shift their lens to in-home experiences. Glenlivet, are taking to hosting virtual tasting experiences. They send you 3 different whiskies, and then you join a virtual meetup where the Glenlivet master distiller hosts you that tasting alongside live music. I'm sure about that, bagpipes, and a Q&A session sort of kicking in. Really, again, a really lovely blend of the physical, the human, the digital, kind of all blended to one in this very unique situation that we find ourselves in. We'll also see, I think, multi-moment experiences. A visit to the gym will provide your workout and your grocery pickup in a click and collect lockers in the changing rooms, therefore reducing the contact that you have down to one experience, not that multiple multi-moment shopper touch points, right? And if I think, then what we're going to see is grocers installing large format 24/7 vending machines at service stations. This is an idea that we came up with over 3 years ago, but now Cleveron have launched their own version. The Cleveron solution here is a unique robotics-based click and collect solution. And it's designed to offer outdoor grocery pickup in a variety of different locations. The grocery robot can store vegetables or milk, frozen goods like ice cream, and thanks to its size, minimal site requirements and easy installation, it can be placed pretty much anywhere, any easy to access location. It could be a business district or traffic junctions. It could be in the car park of a grocery store, etc. Out of hours. This enables the grocery supplier to take their shop closer to their consumers and offer a fast and convenient kind of pickup solution, right? So in short, how might we use fresh thinking to deliver convenience that doesn't simply get replaced by standard e-commerce? Yeah. The third theme, embracing the Nibble Effect. We strongly believe that the subscription-based economy is going to continue to explode. And in fact, we're already seeing that here. If you're a large retailer that hasn't figured this out and designed your own differentiated version, I'd suggest you need to watch out. A quick poll of my friends and their changing behaviors, it became super, super clear to me that revenue and margin is being nibbled away from big box grocers by subscription-based services. I have friends that subscribe to My Food Bag, to Quip, to Wine Friend, Kiwi Crate, and a number of other subscription-based services. And during the pandemic, meal kit subscriptions went through the roof here in New Zealand. Allegedly, My Food Bag, which is New Zealand's largest meal kit subscription service, increased their subscriptions by a whopping 400%. It's incredible. So, based on a family of 4, a year subscription to these services here, and if we look at these sort of 5 key services, My Food Bag loses grosses around about $10,500 a year, plus top-ups going elsewhere to more local convenience stores. Quip, which is a toothpaste service, around about probably $300. Wine Friend, $2,000. On the Grind, which is coffee, and let's face it, New Zealand is infatuated with coffee, $800. And razor blades, around about that sort of $650, there or thereabouts. So if you look at that and you pull that all together, that's around $14,000 of lost revenue from one family if you're a grocer. And if we think about it, we've got a population of 5 million, 1.6 million households, 68% of those are families, so around about 1 million family households in New Zealand. 1% leakage, so 1% of those took up essentially those subscription-based services, that's $150 million loss. 5%, that's 750. 10%, that's $1.5 billion being leaked based on that take-up. We think this is serious business. We think this is something that grocers and others need to take deadly serious as we move forward. And we think it is just going to explode during COVID and post-COVID. So in short, how might you accelerate the development of subscription-based offers? Our fourth theme, humanizing the efficiency paradigm. So look, let's not forget about the human and the physical environment in your rush to digital, right? We're all talking about this rush to digital, and I get it. Professor Scott Galloway talks about a really great Lenin quote, which is, there are decades where nothing happens, and there are weeks where decades happen. Essentially, in the States, the e-commerce grew 1% year on year for the past 10 years. In the past 8 weeks, it has grown by 10%. Essentially a decade happening in weeks. So look, it's all too easy to over-index on the efficiency paradigm, cost out, human out, but we believe it is about developing deep relationships with our customers, a symbiotic balance between automation on the one hand and humanity on the other. And we're seeing a backlash. New Zealand's Sophie, which was their digital human assistant, isn't the digital golden child that they expected. And I'm not saying for a second that there isn't a place for these types of tools. There absolutely is. But, we can't replace humans. It can't be to the detriment of human connection, particularly when our customers want or need that human connection at that particular moment in the customer journey. Humans, funnily enough, want to connect with other humans, particularly at key moments of anxiety or stress across the customer experience. And we need to be very mindful of that. So for us, it's about using technology as part of the balance of the troika of the physical, of the human, and of the digital aspects of the experience, or what we refer to as the PhD factors, and one that puts the customer firmly at the center. I think we're going to see the need to really consider these levers in designing how we turn up post-COVID. And if you think about it, here's a good way to think about an efficient balance of those PhD factors. Yeah, think about all the pain points and unnecessary human interactions across the end-to-end customer experience, pre, during, and post. Now think about where humans truly add value, even if it feels unnecessary. The delta between these points in the customer experience will be replaced with digital. Now consider how to amplify the effectiveness of your people across this end-to-end customer experience. So here is an example of an innovation that demonstrates the PhD factors working well in these times where the less we touch, the better. It's an idea that resulted from a design sprint that we ran with one of our clients, Z Energy, who are one of New Zealand's largest service station brands with around 150 sites up and down the country. So this is Fastlane. Fastlane is simple. You essentially sign up using their application. You add your car registration plate number, you add your credit card details, and the next time that you turn up to Z, a camera recognizes your number plate, it unlocks the pump, and if a concierge is on duty, they will greet you by your first name, fuel you up, and off you go without even having to get out of the car. This is zip through fueling at Z without touching a thing. I think this is an awesome experience that is ideally positioned for this COVID mess that we find ourselves in. And the results have been pretty good. These are a little bit out of date. The share of wallet increased pretty significantly. So before their first Fastlane transaction, 1 out of 10 customers were visiting Z for all their fuel. Post their first Fastlane visit, that increased to 3 out of 10. And Fastlane, as you'd expect, is becoming increasingly relevant for SMEs, particularly electricians, builders, tradies at this time. So, in short, whilst digital is clearly an accelerant at this time, we're also human and expect human engagement. How might you balance those PhD factors, the physical, the human, and the digital, to better serve your customers at this time? Yeah. So look, just sort of wrapping that section of the presentation up, we need to make a fundamental shift in our behaviors and in our thinking. We need to shift from being apathetical about local to actually being, real and compassionate support for local needs to come through. From being really corporate to being truly authentic and using storytelling to connect with our customers. And from an internal focus to being fanatical about the changing needs of your customers. And from me and my business, just me and my little business, to being actually creating and thinking about creating ecosystem partnering for good, partnering up with other businesses to actually do good in the communities that we live in. And from cost out, human out, to actually a really elegant balance of the PhD factors, the physical, the human, and the digital. So, the shift, and I guess the 4 emerging macro trends that we're seeing emerge highlight some of the traits that the people behind these 4 stories I'm about to share with you have embraced as they learned to support, as they learned to give, to adapt, and to pivot. So let's get into it. Let's take a closer look. So we're going to talk about support, mobilizing New Zealand business community, support SMEs through this tough time. We're going to talk about a story around giving, using a world-first product to do good for those in need. We're going to talk about adapting the supermarket shopper experience to this new normal. And we're going to finish off on a story of pivoting at speed to save a business smashed by COVID-19. So our first story is one of support. This is about mobilizing New Zealand business community to support small to medium-sized business enterprise at this time. This is Manaaki. So what was the COVID-19 challenge? How could we support SMEs to get through this really tough time? So Manaaki is essentially it's an emergency business advisory forum. Manaaki is a Maori word meaning to support, to take care of, to give hospitality to protect, and to look out for, to show respect, generosity, and care for others. I'm just going to play you this short clip, which I think is a really good sort of sum up of Manaaki.
This is a love letter to small New Zealand businesses.
You get us up in the morning.
Do our hair.
Make our eggs on toast.
You know our names.
And our coffee orders.
Fix our plumbing. teach our kids.
You entertain and inspire us.
You help us get on with our lives.
But life has changed.
You are the backbone of our country.
And your livelihood has been threatened.
We will not stand by and watch it happen.
We are Manaki,
your support network of business experts.
Give us your questions and frustrations.
Opportunities, fears.
Share the burden.
And together we will find solutions.
Manaki is an offering of care and respect.
It strengthens the mana, both of those who give it and those who receive it.
So let us do what we can to help you.
And we will come out of this stronger.
It is a platform of support set up by the team at Indigo and my business mentor, Andy Hamilton, to support the New Zealand SME community by providing free advice and support from over 150 industry experts who volunteer our time to answer questions posed on the manaki.io website. Experts come from multiple industries and support 24 topics ranging from COVID-19 funding and support, social enterprise, tourism, brand and marketing, business growth, technology, legal, startups, and many, many more topics of support. We provide answers to questions that come in from SMEs in need. Here is an example of one page on Manaki. A honey producer needing to help to get their message out there into the community. Retailers needing help with marketing and advertising. Funding inquiry regarding a startup selling products in lockdown. A cafe owner in dire straits having been let down by pretty much everybody. A food truck owner needing help with positioning and marketing. An electrician trying to help his predominantly South African contractors remain in New Zealand. Accountancy advice, tourism startup advice, social distancing and retail advice, eco-product marketing advice, HR support, environmental job advice. And that is just one page worth on Manaki. It's an incredible movement. It went from an idea to MVP launch in just 5 days with a budget of 1,200, yes, 1,200 New Zealand dollars. That's 5 days and 1,200 New Zealand dollars. That's 730 US dollars. And in weeks, grew to the point that many mistakenly thought Manaki was a large corporate or government initiative with over 55,000 businesses coming to the platform. It has given SMEs up and down our land a lifeline to expert advice and saved many businesses in dire straits, and I am absolutely delighted to be one of the experts on Manaki volunteering my time. Andy was recently interviewed by a Prime Minister and alongside Manaki co-founders has fueled a movement and has created this incredible initiative. As Pat, one of the founders, so eloquently puts it, in times of crisis, we grab onto the essence of our collective identity. For Kiwis, so much of that is based in Maori culture. Think of the All Blacks. They start every game with a representation of what it means to be a New Zealander, the haka. We needed to create a symbol of our collective identity for this moment, one that was intrinsic to Te Ao Maori, but that all New Zealanders could identify with. Rather than a call to war, it would be a call to care, a call to look after each other, to raise up our fellow New Zealanders, a call to Manaki. Manaki continues to grow and push social good in new and innovative directions. A case in point, a couple of weeks ago, Manaki partnered with New Zealand's answer to Shopify and set up an ambitious goal to get 1,000 New Zealand SMEs set up online with a free website in a week. They had over 1,000 small businesses signed up in the first week and have since helped to launch over 400 websites. I think this is just an amazing effort. It's an incredible story, and it is it's a demonstration of care for others ahead of self. I think it's awesome. Our second story is using a world-first product to do good for those in need. So the COVID challenge here was, how can Z support those in need at this time? This story is a result of using a world-first product that we gave birth to as part of a design sprint that we ran a couple of years ago. At D&Co, we kind of really love and relish this idea of tackling, wicked customer problems. And it's the challenge that Z, as I said earlier, one of New Zealand's largest service station brands, set us as we considered what might the future of loyalty look like? And we use things like statement starters. So, things like how might we get people to drive past a competitor service station to come to us every time? And so we embarked upon this design sprint to ideate and explore potential concepts to answer these types of questions, right? We used our proprietary experience innovation system, and we generated hundreds of ideas that we then synthesized down into 11 key concepts to test with customers up and down New Zealand, right? Excuse me. Using various different method sets that we've developed, So we moved from insights to ideas, from ideas to concepts, from concepts to experiences, and fundamentally kind of then arrived at this what loyalty might look like through the lens of a customer, and these over the course of a 6-month period, and with a number of different concepts therein to explore and to continue to test with customers. So 2 of these concepts have since exited the innovation pipeline, and they've hit the market, turning a grudge purchase, fueling, into a moment of delight, and in the process actually creating a couple of world firsts. One of those is Fastlane that we shared with you earlier, and the second one is an idea called ShareTank, which started life as lock in your price or price lock when we first came up with it. So by conducting a significant amount of ethnographic research, we unearthed a common pain point experienced by many motorists in New Zealand. So in New Zealand, we have variable fuel pricing, and that means that a service station might be significantly more expensive than another, just actually a few kilometers away. We discovered that a lot of motorists were driving around town to find the best fuel price. I remember interviewing a student, and she was like, why is it, Russ, why is it that I have to drive past the Z to get to a Z which has a better price? It just kind of blew my mind that 2 Zs would have a different and variable pricing. Which we just thought was completely and utterly nonsensical, and was clearly a significant point of frustration to our customers. So, with the team at Z, we created Lock In Your Price lock concept, which featured in our Future of Loyalty boards. We conducted rapid prototyping, and we essentially, through a bunch of customer testing, it pivoted to ShareTank, and ultimately that's the concept that has gone and hit the market. ShareTank basically acts as your virtual fuel. The Z app allows motorists to bulk buy fuel at current market rates and use that fuel at a later date. ShareTank allows customers to find and pre-purchase fuel at the best price from Z stations within a 30-kilometer radius of your location. You can buy up to 1,000 liters of fuel at one time, and the virtual fuel can be stored and accessed when you need it. You can also share your virtual tank with up to 5 members or members of your organization. So, alongside a number of COVID-19 initiatives, the Z team ideated ways to do good and ultimately kind of help others. So they thought about how they might use ShareTank. And in partnership with New World Supermarkets, one of the largest supermarket chains in New Zealand, and the Student Volunteer Army, they looked to donate fuel to volunteer students who were giving up their free time to deliver groceries to the vulnerable, i.e., the over 65. Each student downloaded the Z app, and via the New World grocery store kind of chief picker, were then given free fuel via ShareTank. Moreover, the students could also sign up for Fastlane via the application, and in combination with ShareTank, they could just zip through their fueling experience. If we consider a future where contactless will be more important than ever before, these types of innovations are set to differentiate Z from the competition moving forward. Our third, adapting the supermarket shopper experience to the new normal. We think about the challenge here, how can we, New World, which again, as I say, is a leading New Zealand supermarket chain, transform the in-store experience as we exit alert level 4. So what we did is we decided to create a rapid shopper ideation design sprint for New World. And as with so many other supermarket chains around the world, our client stores were overrun with panic buying, emptying shelves, causing even in little old New Zealand some pretty nasty scenes, And this was swiftly followed by really strict shopping procedures, an incredibly sterile anxiety-ridden shopping experience, right? With many customers flocking to online, which then completely overwhelmed the online delivery systems, with delivery slots becoming, rarer than hen's teeth moving forward. Because as a little aside here, just prior to me getting into this story, prior to COVID hitting, we actually ran a design sprint focused on the planning stage of the customer experience. And in doing so, we surfaced a multitude of ideas that were then subsequently tested with customers and put through viability and feasibility testing. So, going out and understanding the desirability and then looking at viability and feasibility. One of the more popular concepts was a concept called Essentials. It's essentially a product box full of essential ingredients, essential products rather. And as COVID hit, the New World team were able to activate this concept at speed, and they managed to get the concept to product out there in the market in a matter of weeks. So, pretty good timing, and it was already there, ready to go. And we're currently working with New World to push this thinking much further. So we're iterating, testing and learning and moving forward. So look, back to the main story here. So we've all experienced to a greater or lesser extent the anxiety of grocery shopping during these difficult times. And these figures attest anxiety is our new normal. 28% of New Zealanders are fearful of re-entering public areas like cafes and shops and so on. 40% of shoppers want to avoid crowds. And as New Zealand moves out of lockdown, 40% of customers intend to do their grocery shopping locally. So midway through this pandemic hitting, where shoppers were still queuing around the block and social distancing measures were strictly enforced and the shopper experience was, far from enjoyable. We were asked to help New World to kind of ideate, to redesign the shopper experience, the in-store shopper experience in this time of heightened anxiety. Our client wanted to explore ways to alleviate anxiety, to turn up in a more empathetic way moving forward, to demonstrate care in the community and to reassure their customers. So using the customer experience moments that matter strategy that we recently developed for New World as our starting point, as our foundation, we were able to leverage the critical customer pain points across the end-to-end customer experience and our quantified customer benefits as our launch pad into ideation. So we embraced a really customer-driven mindset and ran a 5-day Zoom and Miro design thinking sprint to arrive at a long list of ideas broken down into key territories. We conducted internal ideation. We worked with the client on empathy mapping to take customer research and convert that data into a view of what our customers were saying, what they were thinking, what they were doing, and what they were feeling at this time. We then ran sessions in Zoom, including breakout rooms, to explore ideas aligned to these key territories. And from there, our team synthesized these ideas down, again using Zoom and Miro, ahead of customer rapid kind of guerrilla testing, and then a final shortlisting exercise with our clients, all in 5 days. It was just like super rapid design sprint. We then prepared low fidelity concept posters and a rationale for the internal executive. These are still being worked on at the moment, so I can't actually share the ideas themselves per se. And we're working now with New World to roll out these short-term ideas from this sprint. And longer-term ideas aligned to the 4 territories that I shared with you earlier in this talk: amplifying contactless convenience, embracing the Nibble Effect, supporting local, and humanizing the efficiency paradigm. For example, we helped land on the Buy NZ Support Local drive that launched just a couple of weeks ago. New World are showcasing a range of New Zealand brands and producers to help kickstart a customer movement to buy New Zealand-made products and support New Zealand's recovery post-COVID-19. This campaign was one of 5 territories that we came up with as part of a design sprint late in 2019 with New World. It was the most desirable territory and ideation or idea set from the customers that we tested it with. Luckily for us, as the initiative had been under development for months pre-COVID, it was ready to go as we entered alert level 2. Our final story. This is about pivoting at speed to save a business smashed by COVID-19. So what is the COVID-19 challenge here? How can we, Snap Car Rental, pivot to survive in this time of great uncertainty? By way of background, in February of 2020, Snap Rentals was a thriving, innovative rental car company with a fleet of over 1,000 vehicles. When the New Zealand government locked down the country, Snap Rentals was essentially shuttered overnight. And if you think about it, tourism amounts for around about 10% of New Zealand's GDP. And with hubs in some of New Zealand's most popular tourist destinations, Snap Rentals needed to pivot, and to pivot quickly. The government's business support lifeline gave the founders around 8 weeks to mobilize and to reimagine their destiny. So enter my business mentor again, Andy Hamilton. He connected 30 of his closest people with an experimental email introducing each other as we went into lockdown. And he simply provided a very short bio of each person, what they were good at, and left us kind of to help and support one another. So when Snap Rental announced the pivot, I volunteered 40 hours of D&Co time to support them, free of charge. We assisted with things like business strategy, monetization ideation, MVP design, and massively important for these guys, we got them off their current offshore platform and onto Shopify. So incredibly important digital replatforming advice there. That gift of time led me to being completely consumed by the business, and over the Easter weekend became thoroughly embroiled in preparing the MVP offer to hit the market the following week. And talking sort of from idea to MVP launch in, I think, broadly around 3 weeks. So what was the pivot? New Zealand's online shopping offering was pretty much lagging behind even before the pandemic had hit. The current infrastructure actually simply couldn't really cope with a huge demand for online shopping. I mean, it's recovering, but really difficult times. Large supermarkets had to scramble to accommodate online orders, and even then, slots were sometimes not open for weeks. This forced customers to leave their homes, to queue, and to enter supermarkets, sometimes for over an hour, and compete for essential products, which were sometimes invariably out of stock. For those that did order online, they were experiencing high levels of order errors, substitutions, and many product orders simply not being delivered. The broader retail sector didn't really fare too much better, to be honest, with many delivery windows sitting at around that sort of 10 days out. So we launched Snap Delivery to support customers with an affordable, same-day personal shopper delivery service. An online marketplace with multiple stores in one place, your goods in hours, not weeks, your very own personal shopper who conducts virtual consults, think back to Ask Harvey Nicks, kind of taking a bit of stealing that idea, and supporting local businesses, as they go through, and our local staff, of course. Contactless shopping, as you'd expect, and prioritize deliveries for the vulnerable, and actually phone orders for those that were unable to actually order online. Started with premium grocers and have since grown to, I think, around about 14 outlets overall across New Zealand. We're now 10 weeks old and have started employing Kiwis. We've got an ex-airline pilot as a driver on the business, for example, with major New Zealand brands onboarding and operating across New Zealand. We're now driving this growth story across New Zealand. And what impresses me about this story really is the tenacity and the resilience and determination to really drive through and pivot from a car rental business into a same-day grocery delivery business. I think Snap Delivery will survive well beyond lockdown as we see customers shift to a new norm of reduced contact coupled with convenience and, of course, supporting local. These 4 stories, they remind me of my favorite Alan Fletcher quote, which is, "A grapefruit is a lemon that had a chance and took advantage of it." I hope we can all find some ambitious lemons, as we push through 2020. So look, I hope this tour de force through 4 very different COVID-19 retail stories has provided you with a fresh perspective, has provoked you to think a little differently. And I want to conclude this talk by asking you to consider 3 reflective questions. First up, what can your business learn from these stories? What can you do tomorrow to give support, to do good, and to adapt your business, or indeed to pivot? And finally, how might your business change for the better as we come out and into recovery? I'd like to thank you for your time this morning. And if you want to find out more about D&Co, visit www.dandco.nz or simply drop me a line at russ@dandco.nz. Look forward to hearing from you. So thanks very much indeed. Enjoy the rest of the conference and go well. Cheers.